Okay. Back from the brink of nowhere. I am back. Kind of like Alan Wake in the Dark Place, but it is time to get into another video, and I am super excited for today's video as I have been waiting for my little hiatus to be over just to get this out. But that is right, final draft for Alan Wake 2 is finally here, and so many of the unanswered questions with the ending of Alan Wake 2 are finally answered. I'll get into the differences with the ending, along with some of the new TV episodes and manuscript pages we can find in the game, and everything else to expect with the new game plus. But without further ado, and a quick spoiler warning out of the way, I think it's been long enough since I've pushed an intro aside, so let's get right into final draft. So, hopping right into the first thing, and that is gonna have to be the new game plus aspect of things. Get that right out of the way, as this might be named Final Draft, but this is still a new game plus, and I'm gonna start with what comes with that part of this update. So, of course, we get to carry over all of our weapons, charms, upgrades, manuscripts, such and so and such. Originally, there was somewhat of a bug where you could not choose which save to start the final draft off of, and it would automatically go off of your first save. Meaning, if you've played through the story for your first save and did all of the side things and really like 100% of the game on another save, you would only get the stuff you unlocked through the story in that first one. And I do know Remedy has noticed this, and they have said they're working on a fix for it, though I have no clue what's going on there. I didn't even know that was really a bug in the first place, as I ended up doing everything in my first save, so that was just that. I had everything in my new game plus. But let me know in the comments now if it was something you ran into, and if that's something that they haven't figured out yet. Other than that though, the new game plus side of things is a new game plus, so I'll just leave that topic there and move on to the changes that actually came with Final Draft. And really quick before hopping into the new aspects of Final Draft, I just want to say if you are enjoying this video and you want to see more like it in the future, be sure to hit that like and subscribe now. Now on to all the new collectibles and different things you can find in the game, and then I will get to all of the changes to the story afterwards. So yeah, there are different manuscript pages you get to find as Saga, along with new TV episodes. The first one I noticed being a manuscript page playing as Saga. I found a page describing how Saga had deja vu, and that it somehow felt like she had already gone through what was occurring. You can find some more pages throughout the game, but later you will find a couple more pages that seem to highlight some things that caught my eye. First being a page all about the lake house, describing experiments between a Dr. Jules Marmon and our favorite Casper Darling. The other interesting page is called It's Not a Lake, describing the cliffs of Caldera, and you know Caldera Street Station, and it describes Cauldron Lake being a doorway, and then it actually goes into Aughty walking up the cliffs, bucket of water that swirled like a whirlpool, and he spilled the water on the attic floor. Now, I don't know if this one's new or not, so don't come at me for that. I just found it really interesting as you find this right before the ending when Saga travels through Caldera Street and then through the puddle in the floor of the attic at the end of the game. I don't know, just interesting to me. Then on the side of TVs, we get one right at the beginning of the game while playing as Alan in the talk show studio. When playing the classic playthrough, there will actually be a TV that activates when walking up to it, but it instantly cuts out, turning off. Alan then makes a remark of something like, "It must be a message," or something of the likes. Well, in Final Draft, it ends up being another episode to the writer's journey called Spirals. Here, Alan talks about how time is not linear, and everything spirals, hinting at the whole "it's not a loop, it's a spiral" thing. You can also find a set of TV episodes called the Casper Darling Messages, where a series of things get quite weird, like really weird in my opinion. I'll just say we see Casper shirtless at first, and then we see him talking about some pretty important things, along with him meeting Zane. They talk about some project they're working on, and I think this occurs after Alan and Zane meet in the Dark Place, as even though Alan seems to kill Zane, we all know he gets back up and he's still alive, and then along with that, in the cutscene when Alan and Zane meet, Casper seems to have zoned in on Zane's location in the Dark Place. But I will leave the rest of the videos and that little mystery for all of you to uncover. Something ironic though is a conversation between Casper and Zane when they first meet. Casper tells Zane that he looks familiar, and Zane says that's strange because Casper sounded familiar. You know, it's just funny. Matthew voices Alan, Ilka portrays Alan, I don't know. Other than that, though, as I've said, there are a bunch of new collectibles and data to find throughout the game, and I don't want to spoil them all, so I'll let you all find them for yourselves. Now shifting things over to another part of the Dark Place, because I want to talk about the changes that come to the story of Final Draft. I want to forewarn once more, though, that there are about to be spoilers. Big spoilers. It's a totally different ending to the game, and I will be going into that ending in full, so if you don't want to know it and you want to check it out for yourself, stop now. You've been warned. But right off the bat, I'll say I definitely noticed more differences in the Dark Place rather than the real world. Though that kind of just makes sense. But starting off right at the beginning, we actually get a different intro than the original playthrough. This time Alan explaining the words of a poet he once knew. He then goes into how everything spirals, bringing up the spirals right at the beginning, but that is just the full intro cutscene up until taking control of Nightingale. Other than that though, the majority of the story is pretty much the same. The only differences is that ending and a couple of comments made by the characters, but I will get into all of it. Another thing I noticed was later in the story when leaving the studio to get to the Parliament, it may have been a bug, but I remember a second phone call before entering Parliament. But that never happened to me. Again though, it could have just been a bug where the phone call just never occurred and I went in. I don't know though, that second phone call never happened. Right after that though, when entering the tower for the first time, you will actually find a photo in the elevator that you don't find in the original playthrough. It is one of Alice's Dark Place photos, and it depicts Alan with the negative colors and the hole of light in his forehead. And when looking at the picture in your inventory, there is a caption that reads, "You still need to go through the spiral." Honestly, I think this is just a nod at the ending, seeing as you already know it, because this picture doesn't really come up again in the story, it just sits in your inventory. I didn't find any use for it, but I'll circle back to the ending, which might make it make more sense. Maybe you all can let me know in the comments, I don't know. Nearing the ending though, the last time as Alan trying to get to the Parliament after the theater, he comments that he knew he had been there many times before, but could tell this was going to be his last chance, which, I mean, you already know what that means. Then, a little after that, when Saga is thrown into Cauldron Lake and enters the Dark Place, there's actually a huge thing, which I really appreciated and I loved seeing. Next to the fountain where Saga spit out, Tor and Odin are standing nearby, drinking their staple moonshine. They just kind of kick it there, you can't really interact with them until you make your way through the station and back, when right before Saga returns to reality, the two will stop her and have a little conversation. They tell Saga that they had missed her the first time, alluding to the original playthrough, but continue to say that they had helped Dor on the talk show, which we all knew was the case from the Odin Loses an Eye manuscript, though it's nice knowing it's confirmed. They even say they've buried the hatchet with Dor, for now, though their time in reality was over and they had to stay in the Dark Place. But they tell Saga that Wake has a plan where the two will in fact see Saga again one day, but Ahti had already wet the floor and she had to go. This also goes back to that manuscript I mentioned earlier of Ahti, the Cliffs of Caldera, and wetting the floor of the attic. Then we get to the end cutscene, and let me just tell you, wow. Just wow, this is what this whole video leads up to. It's so good. The ending of Alan Wake 2, I know was already originally so good. I know some people didn't enjoy the ending with questions, you know, people don't like endings like Inception or American Psycho and like Birdman even, but to me, Alan Wake 2 sat right there with them. And I loved it. I loved wondering what would happen next. And I loved, you know, what happened with Alan and even Zane after seeing him get back up. And what about what's going on with Saga and Logan? Well, even though the questions were enough for me, all of those unanswered questions are now answered, and answered so well. I guess maybe not all of them, but the ones that mattered. So the first thing we learn is that it took 13 years for Alan to escape. Well, we know that, but the reason it took so long was actually his separation from Alice. His love for Alice was so strong that it was the only thing keeping him holding on and not getting lost in the Dark Place. Though they were always too far apart for him to actually escape. It wasn't until Alice herself went into the dark place 13 years later and there wasn't such a separation that Alan was able to pull himself together and write Return. We learn that the spiral has occurred way more than once, but many times, and we learn that it was the first time that Saga had used the light bullet on Wake that created the dark presence in the first place, as it was formed from the darkness that left Wake's head the first time. Now, I don't know how this makes sense, but the way I take it is that the dark presence in the first game is most likely something from Zane. Then everything else up to the events of Alan Wake 2 would be solely in the dark place, affecting Wake from the darkness in his head, and not in reality. Then everything happening 13 years later is happening because the dark presence left Wake's head, and without the love of Alice, that darkness formed a being, making it into reality, being Scratch. Who knows honestly though, I could have taken it wrong, but Wake is now dead though. He took the light bullet and Saga calls Logan like before. The phone rings, and the screen goes black. Then boom, it comes back as Logan picks up, calling out to Saga. She tells Saga that she had the worst nightmare ever, but Saga tells her it's all over and she would be back soon. And then suddenly Wake's eyes jolt open as he stands up quickly. A vision of Alice appears as Wake thanks her for her help and the light she brought to the ending. And then the game closes off with Alan saying this.
And so I return. With me I bear the torch of knowledge, the light, the miracle illuminated, the master of two worlds. No, the master of many worlds.
Which not only gave me goosebumps, but it circles back to that beginning monologue and even hints at Alan maybe traveling to new worlds, like maybe Jack Joyce's, hint hint, or maybe he's just breaking the fourth wall and saying he is the master of the Remedyverse. But the credits roll and the game is over once again. There's no other end credit scenes, there's no other secrets, that's it. Alan Wake 2 is currently over. At least until we get the new DLC. Really though, this was a great ending. Maybe it wasn't as different as expected, but definitely worth the third playthrough. Remedy really outdid themselves with Alan Wake 2, but somehow brought things even further with Final Draft's amazing ending. And honestly, this just makes me even more excited to get my hands on the upcoming DLC. But when it comes to my thoughts, I think that this was a great addition to an already fantastic game, but I will say that we didn't get a definite answer to a couple things that I kinda wish we did, though we may see in later DLCs, or even Remedy games. First off, what is going on with Alice? Yes, we know that she is helping Alan and Saga and is somewhere in the dark place, but where exactly? And how did she end up helping in the long run? And how did she call on the payphone? I don't know. Also though, now that Alan is out and Alice is back in the dark place, does that mean that Alan now has to turn around again and go back in and save her? Like the first game? It really is a spiral. I will also say that there were quite a few bugs I ran into, making parts of the game absolutely unplayable, where I had to reload it or I had to verify the files of the game. It was really weird. Sure, I was able to get through it, but there were some times I found myself getting angry for not being able to get through it. All in all though, I think this was a worthy ending. You all know how much I love Alan Wake, and how much I wanted Alan Wake 2 to be Game of the Year. So take it from me when I say that Final Draft is worth the second or even third playthrough, and it will only make you more excited for what Remedy has to offer. Though on the side of what I have to offer, I think that that's going to be everything for now, and I will just have to return to Alan Wake 2 whenever we hear word of the DLCs. So if you enjoyed my thoughts on Alan Wake 2's Final Draft, or you just like the update in general, let me know any of your thoughts in the comments now. And if you enjoyed this video, why not slap that like and go ahead and join the channel by subscribing now. And if you wanted to support this channel and more videos like it, definitely check out a membership to my YouTube now. But I will say, don't go to Patreon. I know I've said to go to Patreon in the past videos, but Patreon is done. I have moved everything from Patreon over to YouTube, so if you want to get your name at the end of every single video, if you want to support the channel and get most videos a couple hours early, check out a membership to my YouTube by pressing that little join button now, but do not feel pressured, as you fine people of YouTube already do plenty. And if you liked any music in this video and you want to hear more of my home-cooked jams, check out Billy the Whip on any music platform now. And since we're here, I wish you all an amazing day, and thank you all for tuning back in after what felt like forever.
Billy the boogeyman coming for you. Look out for the pigs, look out for me too. Been chewing them up, spitting the new, spitting the bones, pushing the noose, squeezing the game. Been making that juice, no need for the pulp. I'm spitting that too, rip it through. Anyone jumping through hoops, it's emergency, man. Sending the troops. I'm on the offensive, so don't get defensive. I know that you'll love me, so hop off the fences. I'm trudging through trenches, I'm dodging.